Today's episode is brought to you by Shadow of the Tomb Raider, available September 14th. Pre-order now for 2-day early access.
Happy Thursday. Welcome to Screen Junkies Universe. We know it's Thursday because Danielle is with us today.
Woo-hoo.
Light of my life. Spencer Gilbert is here. Present. Dan Murrell.
Here.
Yes, good. Present and accounted for. It's time for school. And by that we mean a bunch of entertainment news that we're going to talk about. So, Fox, this is via the LA Times, is demanding a scene be removed from Shane Black's Preorder movie. And this is pretty close to the release. I think we're scheduled to see it next week.
Next Monday is the press screening that we're going to. So yeah, this is very close to release.
Cutting it a little bit close. So here's the essence of what happened. Shane Black had a friend named Stephen Wilder Striegel. He cast him in a short 3-page scene with actress Olivia Munn, where he played a jogger who was repeatedly hitting on her. Last month, Munn learned that Striegel is a registered sex offender who pleaded guilty in 2010 after facing allegations that he attempted to lure a 14-year-old female into a sexual relationship via the internet. She shared this information with Fox studio executives, and they quickly decided to remove the actor from the movie. Here is a statement from Fox. Our studio was not aware of Mr. Striegel's background when he was hired. We are not aware of his background during the casting process due to legal limitations that impede studios from running background checks on actors. Shane Black defended his decision to cast his friend, who he had also cast in Iron Man 3 and The Nice Guys, in smaller roles. He was an actor who had been on things like Melrose Place before this had occurred, and he was friends with Shane Black for about 14 years. And here's what Black had to say. I personally chose to help a friend. I can understand others might disapprove, as his conviction was on a sensitive charge and not to be taken lightly. But he added that he felt that Striegel was, quote, caught up in bad situation versus something lecherous. Munn said she found it both surprising and unsettling that Shane Black, our director, did not share this information to the cast crew of Fox Studios prior to, during, or after production. However, I'm relieved that when Fox finally did receive the information, the studio took appropriate action by deleting the scene featuring Wilder prior to the release of the film. You can read this article and goes into a little bit more depth on the case in the LA Times article in terms of what happened with Striegel and the young lady who is known as Jade Doe, obviously, because she was 14. She was distantly related to him. And you know what? Go read it. Yeah. It's all there for you if you want to go read it. We'll put a link in the description below. I do want to address one quick thing. I know that a couple of us have gotten some tweets and comments asking why are we not addressing Asia Argento, and the reason is this: the story that we're doing now directly impacts the film. It's about the movie. They have pulled the scene out at the very last minute. We're going to talk about the implications of that. The Aja case is separate from that. So that's sort of how we make those distinctions in general, broad terms. So let's talk about this. What's surprising to me, quite honestly, is that Shane Black, I can see where he thought, okay, I cast my friend in The Nice Guys, I cast my friend in Iron Man 3, no one said anything. But this feels like a very different time that I'm surprised that he didn't know that this would come up now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm flabbergasted. I'm...
By the way, I'm not saying he should have cast his friend, to be very clear. I'm not saying he should have. I'm just surprised that he chose to do it again now.
And then to come out with the quote about, choosing to help a friend. And I don't... Your job as a director is to protect the movie and to protect your cast, and bringing an element like this into your movie without telling your cast, as an actor, I would not be able to trust him again.
It's interesting too because Olivia Munn's been pretty outspoken in the last year or two, and he put this person in a scene with her where he was hitting on her.
Yeah.
Which feels a little weird. Spencer, what's your take?
That was really dumb of Shane Black and gross, and the fact that he said he was caught up in a bad situation in regards to his friend. It's like, if you're eligible for an episode of To Catch a Predator, yeah, you're caught up in a bad situation. That's maybe the most mild way you could possibly put hitting on an underage girl that's maybe related to you.
And he did time.
He did 6 months.
He did 6 months.
Yeah.
So
yeah. This feeds into a narrative that's kind of been the cycle for the last few weeks, though, which is this concept of what is the role in deciding when somebody has whatever you want to call it, paid their dues, paid their penance. And I think that the pushback, and on this too, is you see where there has been a lot of discussion is when the people that decide, it's time to, I'm ready, this person, I'm going to go back on stage and do comedy again, I'm going to cast my friend again. The people that are deciding that are either the people themselves or a third party, a friend, somebody that's engaged close to them that maybe, and who knows, but maybe might not have the best perspective on the situation. We all have people that we're close to. We all have friends that if they were caught up in something really terrible, the instinct might be to say, I'm going to side with them, and maybe that's not necessarily the right perspective because you sort of block out things that you don't want to know about a person or you don't want to hear about a person, and it's not the best thing to do because sometimes you need to hear those things or you need to acknowledge those things. And so I think this discussion with Shane Black is, again, we have a case where here's a director who made the decision that, well, he's my friend and I think he deserves a break. I think that he needs to, to be let back in, and I think that he's paid that penance, and I don't necessarily think that Shane Black is the person that should be in the position to do that.
The studio,
or
at the very least, Olivia Munn, who has to get hit on by this guy in a movie.
If Shane Black really believes that this was a friend that was caught up in a bad situation, then he should go to the studio. He should go to his cast and say, "Hey, I want to cast this person. He served this amount of time, but here are the reasons why I believe that he is not." It should be back. And then you let them make that decision. You don't unilaterally make that decision, because that's the thing, is when that decision is made unilaterally, oftentimes that's at the expense of the actual facts of the situation. And I'm not saying that people are beyond redemption, but that redemption doesn't come from a biased third party or the person themselves. That redemption comes from, I think, just kind of publicly going through the process of redeeming yourself.
And I don't know. No, just especially it's, this isn't saying, no one's saying that people don't deserve to work, but there's a difference between, Shane Black could have hired that guy to why don't you work on, why don't you do my lawn? Why don't you do something else? There are, not to be dismissive because those are still jobs, but if that is your friend, you can still give them work in other ways. Acting is a trust fall. And when something like this happens, you have broken that trust completely.
Yeah, that's thank you. That was going to be my next point, as in we are not the ones to decide this, by the way, because we're not the judge and jury of the world. No one is. But there is a question around the idea of if someone's done time and they've served their time, do they then not have an opportunity to be reformed? And is not the purpose of that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's just not up to their buddy. Like we were saying, that's up to, yes, the director, but also the studio and also his co-stars.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you guys. That's to me where he wasn't transparent about the situation with the people that he needed that transparency to feel safe.
Well, and it's also that concept
the studio doesn't want to get in the middle of this right now.
No, exactly. This is not what the studio wants to be talking about a week before the movie comes out.
Does it impact it, you think?
I don't know if it impacts it, because it's sadly, it doesn't strike me as the kind of story that's going to permeate nationwide in the sense of everybody is going to know about it. I think it's largely going to be an industry story and a movie, film, media story. I think the internet, the people that follow online film news are going to know about it, but I don't know if it is something that is going to be a huge thing that would spark a boycott. I think it sparks a really interesting discussion, but I don't know if it's going to be something where a large swath of moviegoers are going to say, well, I'm not going to go see The Predator because, and it's also it's not just a cut and dry thing. It's a conversation. It's a discussion, which is what we should be having, discussions about these kinds of things.
I'm curious if it will have any impact at all on the film, because I think, Dan, to your point, a lot of the people reading this are kind of like in the insulated world of actually very much covering or following movie news versus the average audience goer. I think what's going to impact The Predator is the reviews and word of mouth.
Yeah, they took care of this so quickly.
Yeah.
This was really, by the time we had heard of it, it was already nipped in the bud. And I think there's a difference between when the story is this was a situation that has been handled rather than this is a situation that is ongoing and we don't know what the result's going to be yet.
I think that a lot of people, because the name that I keep seeing get thrown up when people are talking about redemption and coming back is Robert Downey Jr. A lot of people saying like, well, what about Robert Downey Jr.? He did terrible things.
He was a drug addict.
Yeah, it's like, number one, it's not the same thing. Number two, and number two, Robert Downey Jr. Went to jail numerous times. His career was dead. He was unhireable. Like, he paid the price for his actions by going through a long stretch of his career where he was not. He fell from grace, and he clawed his way back up. He took Ally McBeal and taking TV roles, and
actually Shane Black.
Yeah, and I mean
with,
Shane Black with Kiss Kiss and Bang Bang,
Bang Bang.
But again, like that, when people say, well, what's the difference between this person that did this and Robert Downey Jr.? And the difference is that Robert Downey Jr. demonstrably and openly and is open about his struggle and the fact that he went through hard times. And he, in my mind looking in, he earned it back in the sense that he did lose everything, and he didn't come out of, he didn't get arrested and come and walk out and say like, okay, I want my career back. Like, that's not how it works. There's the part about redemption is you have to redeem yourself. Yeah, and that's the part that I think a lot of people are skipping, is like, you don't just get to like wait it out and then just walk back and say that you're sorry. Like, you have to take action.
He also, Downey, went through rehab. He got sober.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason that he was put in actor jail, because he's insanely talented, as we know.
Yeah.
The reason he got put in actor jail is because he was a financial liability. They couldn't trust that they could get the film made and complete with him, because he was going to go off on some crazy bender or get himself arrested or whatever. And then when he got his act together and he was no longer a financial, they had to take all kinds of insurance out on him.
And he openly and honestly dealt with that.
Right.
He didn't hide it, and he didn't try to obscure it. And I think that's the difference, honestly.
It almost reminds, this is a weird tangent, but when Lindsay Lohan tried to do, there was that Oprah show where the point of it was to show that Lindsay is getting her life together and she's trying to make a comeback. It was a reality show. The reason why, I know.
Well, that's questions. It's real. It really happened.
What?
It happened. Yeah.
What's it called?
I think it's just called Lindsay.
Yeah.
And the point of it was supposed to be, okay, you're going to follow her as she's dealing with a life coach, and you're going to, who was actually, another weird side note, was in those Kid and Play movies, House Party.
What?
She played like one of the, like Gina's friend or whatever. Anyway.
She's
Just
now
cementing
a
the
life
fact
coach?
that life coach is not a real job.
Wait. What?
Yeah, so one of
All
the...
of the what?
Yeah, so one of the women who was one of the romantic leads in the first House Party.
Where do I find this?
I think YouTube has them all.
Oh, good.
But so what?
Bye.
But so the point of that was to show, hey, Lindsay's getting it back together, and Oprah's helping her, and they're setting all this stuff up. And unfortunately, what wound up happening is, it showed the opposite. It showed her not trying and just being like, well, why aren't you giving me back all of my things now?
Oh, and also blaming kombucha for her DUI, forcing me to now give my ID when I want a kombucha.
True story.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks, Lindsay. It's the dumb Lohan law. Do you guys know about this?
No.
She had a DUI.
Yeah.
I never saw it, but I remember hearing about it.
So she had a DUI where she was like, oh, there's like very trace amounts of alcohol in kombucha. And she was like, I was drinking a kombucha, that's why. And so now kombucha is forced to have two separate labels, one of which is for the version of it which has any trace amounts of alcohol, and you have to actually get carded for it.
That's annoying.
It's stupid. Anyway.
Thanks, Lohan.
I just want to get drunk at work.
On my weird mushroom tea.
On my mushroom tea.
Guys, on that note, this just coming from Hollywood Reporter right now, I think someone at this table called it, but I'm not sure who. The Academy Awards, or the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, has decided to postpone the introduction of the new category.
Tom Lennon called it.
The quote was, there's been a wide range of reactions to the introduction of a new award, and we recognize the need for further discussion with our members We have made changes to the Oscars over the years, including this year. We will continue to evolve while also respecting the legacy of the last 90 years. So, this looks like I'm not sure who said it, but I remember someone on the show saying, "I don't think it's going to happen this year."
I've speculated that I don't think it's going to happen at all. But that's so they didn't like postpone it to like we're doing it in 2020. They're just like we're going to talk about this some more.
Yeah.
Back to the drawing board.
Oh, the plot thickens.
Yes,
Feelings in a screen.
Well, I guess the fact that nobody was happy with it at all, anyone,
It's interesting.
isn't really surprising that they didn't force it through.
You know, it was putting a skateboard on the Academy Awards, and I get it. You want to look cool, but
Are skateboards cool?
Rosta it up by 10%.
Yeah.
I don't know. They might be.
I feel like if you're a dad on a skateboard, you're a cooler dad, and that's what the Academy Awards were trying to do. They were trying to be a slightly cooler dad, and it's like, no, that's not. The people that you're making this award for, they already have awards for themselves, and the other people who watch the shows, they don't want that award.
And then the industry went, Dad!
You're embarrassing me.
Embarrassing us!
Wait, let me try to ollie. And then he just broke his tailbone.
Oh my God! I'm leaving.
He has to buy like those new Converse that are made for 40 and plus.
I think it was just it was rushed, and it was an ill-advised in the sense of like they announced it with none of the attached provisos and requirements, and it just was so confusing and muddled.
Nice use of
what is
provisos.
it? Thank you.
Provisos.
What does it mean? I think that was part of it. Was if they had waited and come up with, and I've read that like there's a lot of Academy members who are just like, you didn't talk to me about this. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is the Academy, and you're doing an Academy award, but we don't know what this award is for. They just seem to have rushed it to me.
New pitch. Academy Award for a new Academy Awards category. Members can vote on the show.
Okay.
And they will announce and the nominees are like best stunt, best popular movie, coolest skateboarding scene, best kiss, most WTF moment, and then they can vote.
And then the final one is the first rule of where it's my pitch for how the best picture actually gets decided. It's genre. It's so easy, you guys. You want to turn it all around? You have genre-based awards, and then they fight it out, trial by combat. That's the best picture.
I think that they
Like
should just
actual
not.
combat?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down.
You choose a champion. It has to be from your movie.
It has to be like one. So every movie suddenly has like one. Just like Dave Bautista is in every movie.
A lot more
not
wrestlers,
John
yeah.
Cena
Yeah.
for some reason.
All right, well, now you've sold me.
It's like Doubt and Dave Bautista. Like Cena's just in the background in a subtle nun's habit.
Yeah.
I think Meryl Streep would still be in the cast of every Oscar bait movie, and I think that she would kick everyone's ass.
She would.
I don't think
no
you're
one
right.
would touch
She
her.
would. She would shiv everyone in that pit.
Yeah,
and it would be
And it would
so
be an
much
honor
fun
to be
watch.
shivved by her.
You don't have a career as long as Meryl Streep's if you don't know how to win a street fight.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Street fight.
Yeah.
Definitely, at least some all about Eving, like wait until someone's back is turned and push them down the stairs. But so this is another. It's a different version of what we were talking about, but it's another thing of when the news comes out before the thing is settled, and then we all have time to speculate. This is what happens, and this is why you want to get in front of these things before it becomes this big kerfluffle.
It will be interesting to see how they
Provisos,
rebound.
kerfluffles. Wow.
I mean, they're
Wow,
not
now
going
I
to be
have to
able.
compete.
They're not. Are they going to have time to make a change for this year's awards? You think, or they're just going to leave it standard?
Are they still going to
business as
just
usual?
put the technical award winners on like a conveyor belt?
Yeah.
I'd like to thank my mom and Jesus and May.
Well, that's the other thing is I wonder how much lobbying has been done in the last few weeks from the branches of the Academy, from the sound branch, from the visual effects branch, because it's not just one huge pool. There are different branches of the Academy. I wonder how much of that was people from those branches saying like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Please don't give us our award via T-shirt cannon.
Yeah.
Ooh, hazardous too.
And then eventually it's just like the attendance award, and everybody who shows up looks under their seat and they get an Academy Award, and Oprah's hosting it, and it's amazing. Once again, I do think they'll have to come back with some kind of changes, because the truth is, like, the telecast, the ratings are down and down and down. I think they made the right move here to hit pause. The industry can calm down collectively, and we can feel better about the upcoming Academy Awards, and we'll see what they do in the future. Gladiatorial awards still on the table for you.
I like it.
I feel like people are saying I don't take the Academy Awards seriously. Global Road files for bankruptcy. This is via Variety. Global Road, we've talked about this a little bit, Dan, just off camera. They used to be Open Road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they've been heading towards a bankruptcy, and they have now officially filed. This is again via Variety. This is a studio that evolved to kind of be a bridge between the U.S. and China and make hit movies for a worldwide audience, which is like such a tough thing to say that's what you're gonna do, you know? And they have been laying off dozens of people. This came out pretty recently in separate articles. Like they were laying people off without severances, and they were pushing back. There's a number of lawsuits. There's a number of creditors. Bank of America seized control of Global Road last month. They released Hotel Artemis, which didn't do what they wanted it to do. Show Dogs.
Axel.
Yeah.
It's Axel.
It's the robot dog movie, and that
the one that
reaction
just-
is exactly why they filed for
the other
bankruptcy.
dog
It's the one
movie,
that just came out. It was like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
2 weeks ago. It did not do well. Bank Leumi, an Israeli bank that's suing Global Road over its unreleased Johnny Depp film City of Lies, is the largest creditor with 10.8 million unsecured claims. Viacom is the second largest, 7.1 million unsecured claims, according to filings. This is a long line of media companies that launched and then did not produce box office winners and folded. So, what do you think this means in larger terms? We talked a little bit, just you and I.
Yeah, well, this is really the fallout from, they picked the worst time, because when Global Road was consolidated, it was Open Road Films, which produced Spotlight, and then another
really good
company
movies.
were sort of combined under Global Road, and the intention of the company was to sort of leverage Chinese and U.S. investments to make this sort of pick movies for both markets. And they picked the absolute worst time, because they formed this country about a year ago. A couple months later, and we talked about it on the show, was when the dominoes started to fall with Chinese investment. The Huawei Media deal with Paramount, they pulled out their $1 billion investment. The last year, China has basically said, we're not going to really invest so much in Hollywood. We're going to invest in our own motion picture industry. So they essentially picked the worst possible time to start a new company that relied on Chinese co-investment, because what happened is they went to the Chinese investors, and the Chinese investors said no.
Yeah. And it was around the time that they pulled out, they took from Paramount.
Yeah, the $1 billion
Paramount. Oh, it's just like it was a total cluster. And Open Road was making, like you said, some really good films. So it's just sort of a bummer, and it's, I think, part of the broad changes. It's another kind of what's the word? Not victim, but I don't know, fallen company, and the broad changes that are happening in the industry. It's a bit of a bummer.
That's about it. It's
okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's if we all would have went and seen Show Dogs, none of this would have happened.
Yeah,
I did my
blame
part.
us.
You saw it twice,
Actually,
didn't you?
MoviePass did my part. But they still got money.
Yeah.
And now both of them are.
Oh.
It's like the kiss of death.
I mean, I guess I have sympathy, but it's also like, for trying to make movies that work for everybody on Earth, which is mostly China, without a gigantic budget, like, because the movies that work worldwide are the ones where, like, you can just look at it.
Yeah.
Your Transformers, your big budget superhero movies and
Fast
stuff
and
like that.
Furious.
So to try to do that on a Show Dogs budget, it's a thankless task, but it doesn't make for good movies.
No, and I mean, I never saw Hotel Artemis.
I didn't
enjoyed
either.
missing it.
They're all were modestly budgeted, in the sense I don't think any of them had a budget of more than $40 million. But the problem is that when you are operating on the scale that Global Road was operating on, you can't afford, like the losses that Global Road took, that's going to be a fourth of the loss that Disney chalks up on Solo. But the problem is that Disney is worth,
they can afford it,
billions of dollars, and Global Road is essentially a startup studio. And that, I mean, again, it just goes to show you, when you're dealing with a small studio, the amount of leeway that you have and the runway that you have to not succeed is so much shorter, because the losses that they're taking, a big studio, I mean, that's yearly.
Yeah.
But that's just how it works,
Yeah, and it's a bummer because you do want some of these smaller companies to be able to make films because that's how you get films like Spotlight, and that's how you get some of the more interesting films of the year. So I don't know.
But Spotlight wasn't made for a Chinese audience.
No, it certainly wasn't. It was Open Road
exactly.
that made it. It was Open Road. It was before the merger, for sure. But still, there is very little give, to Dan's point, financially. Like, these are big investments, and it's why the studios are run the way they're run.
Yep.
It's why they're so obsessive and controlling, because they're risking $250 million.
Yeah, if you're going to be small, you have to be either at a micro budget, or you have to be good more often than not. And like, everyone's batting average in Hollywood is like sub 500.
Sure.
So, yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, I think that exactly. Nobody's making a hit all the time, and nobody's even making something that they think is good all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm somebody that was carried over from Open Road, I'd be pretty upset, because Open Road was pretty consistently, I mean, I remember reading like they weren't in great shape, but they were at least producing some stuff that was like, okay, we got a hit here, we can at least attract investors and creditors because we can point to this, and then they get bought out to create Global Road, and less than a year later they're bankrupt. So that's gotta sting.
Side note, like, this is just in terms of how things go wrong, I think, for creators. One of our producers worked for someone on a movie, like a pretty big movie, and the guy, the person producing it was pretty famous, and he would witness conversations where, I won't say who, and it wasn't Billy.
Not Billy.
I
looks very confused.
And
When did this happen?
this is just getting me thinking about how things can go wrong creatively. Basically, the producers would be talking about what a disaster it is and how the star was nuts and nothing was making sense about this movie. And then the star would walk in and they would be like, "We love it. Everything you're doing is amazing. Oh my God, genius." And I'm like, that's how you ruin people.
Well,
that's how you ruin
not a
creative
producer's
people.
job. That's a director's job.
To do what?
To tell the star they're ruining the movie. Not
the star was also the producer.
Well, yeah. Again, that's not a investor's job. Isn't to tell the actor he's not doing well.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's what happens is that people get to a certain level of fame and success. Everyone's afraid to push back and be like, "Is that the best idea?"
Yeah.
And then it doesn't serve them anymore. It's actually not fair to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a total weird segue. I'd apologize.
Speaking of which, we need to talk after this, Roth.
We do.
I have some notes.
You do? I asked them for notes, just so you know, but I hear them in comments, so don't worry. I know everything I'm doing wrong every day.
The most reliable notes in the world.
The internet makes sure to let me know everything I've done wrong every single day of my life. This was fun. Dan,
Yes.
thank you. Yeah, good
It's a
insights.
nice vegetable-heavy
Spencer.
breakfast, but
Yeah.
sometimes we gotta do that.
A lot of veggies today, but
Yeah.
you can't eat your pudding if you don't eat your meat.
Your milk.
There it is.
Oh my God. We don't need no education.
See?
We have the Nun. So Joe went. Joe went to Mexico and he did the Nun junket for us, and it was awesome, and he had fun. If you didn't see his little basically homemade horror movie that he delivered to us earlier in the week, you should go check it out. It's great. And he talked to the cast and the director of the Nun, and you should watch that right now.
The Nunket.
What do you think is the greatest horror movie of all time? What's the benchmark?
How long do we have?
Feel free to nerd out.
There's just a load that bursts. Obviously, William Friedkin, The Exorcist, is high up, and The Shining, and Nightmare on Elm Street, The Thing, Jaws, Ridley Scott's Alien, Rosemary's Baby, Don't Look Now. I think a lot of films that I grew up on in the 70s and 80s still hold up perfectly today.
I don't think I'll ever use the word favorite and horror movie in the same sentence, but the one that resonates with me that two of my older siblings kind of forced me to watch when I was a kid was Chucky, and I couldn't sleep for a very long time, and I still don't like dolls that much.
I was very easy to get scared when I was a kid, of course, and so growing up watching El Santo movies versus Las Mujeres Vampiro, the vampire women and all that. I spent a few nights up, I'm sure they're down there, I'm sure they're under my bed, those, demonic vampire women. But then The Exorcist. I remember The Exorcist scaring me badly.
What do you guys think are the essentials for a horror movie?
One thing we had on The Nun is just people who are so passionate about monsters and scary things, and it literally like runs through their blood. It's something that they had that excited them since they were a kid.
Evil Dead 2 is my favorite film of all time, and you know, it made me want to make movies.
To watch someone and hear them talk about like, oh, when I was a kid and I was creating these monsters out of Play-Doh, and like now they're here making these big scary movies. It's amazing because they're actually able to incorporate all those like evil thoughts they had and the things they wanted to create. They finally have the opportunity to do it, and they can be let loose.
If you get the best team possible, they're so passionate and savvy about their own, department, everything will be in place. And that is exactly what happened to our film. When you take a look at this film, yes, it's scary and it's brutally savage, but it's a beautiful piece of art. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful film.
Yeah, and filming on location in Romania, it made our jobs. Yeah, it made our jobs as actors easier because it's not difficult to play the fear when you have everything right there in front of you.
Yep.
For me, an environment that is almost like a character, and if that environment lends itself to scares and tension, then fantastic.
Hello.
And then, great characters that you can follow and you care for, and obviously the actors who are going to perform them being super capable of taking you on that journey, and you feeling their fear.
What about the relationship with these two sort of carries through the film? What about them spoke to you guys?
I always appreciate the dynamic between Sister Irene and Father Burke. Sister Irene is someone who's inherently good and wants to help people and wants to do the best.
Hello?
Father Burke, he's a bit stoic at times, and I feel like Sister Irene can't always read him. But what I love about Damien playing Father Burke is Damien is someone who loves life and is super joyous, and he has this twinkle in his eye. And he gave that to Father Burke, and when I was playing Sister Irene, I could see those in the scenes that he always felt like he had something up his sleeve.
And that's precisely what I think connected these two characters, because we got that connection too.
This is your second horror feature now. Yeah. Are there any up-and-coming creators that you really like that you sort of want to see get the baton next, that people should be looking out for?
Well, I know a friend of mine, Jason Lee Howden, who did Deathgasm. He's doing his next movie, Guns Akimbo, that's coming out with Daniel Radcliffe. Babak Anvari did Under the Shadow. He's got a new film coming out, which looks really interesting and creepy.
Thank you so much. Congratulations on the movie. It was super, super fun.
Oh, cool. I look forward to the honest trailer.